Call this meeting to order. City of Anamosa, City Council meeting Monday, January 13th, 2019, City Hall Council Chambers. 1.0 roll call.
Quinn,
Here.
Smith,
Here.
Lockhart,
Here.
Zumba,
Here.
Stout,
Here.
2.0 Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Three motion to approve the minutes from the following meetings. 3.1 December 19, 2019 regular council meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Kay, second by Rich to approve the December 19th council meetings. All those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. 3.2 January 9th, 2020 special joint meeting.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Rich, second by John. All those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. 4.0 public hearing, none. 5.0 proclamations, none. 6.0 old business, none. 7.0 new business. 7.1 discussion and possible action on filing city council vacancy.
I'm not recommending any action, but wanted to leave it on the agenda in case the council felt a need to fill this temporarily. Again, because there's a special election set for March 3rd, the vacancy is automatically placed on there, whether you fill it now or not. So if you do decide to fill it, we'd have to post a public notice of the of the intention to fill it by an appointment before we could actually fill it. So we couldn't fill it any earlier than the next regular meeting, January 27th. The person would only be in the spot for 2 regular meetings. I don't think that's worth the effort. It might cause, more confusion. But again, just wanted to leave it for discussion.
If a person were going to run for the council on the ballot on March, do they have to submit the petition and everything the way one normally does?
Yes, and those forms can either be picked up here at City Hall, they are on the city website, or they can be picked up at the county courthouse.
How would we notify people so they know?
Know of the vacancy.
Know the vacancy and that we're looking?
Again, we've got it posted on the website. The county is required to post a public notice in the newspaper, and so they're doing that.
Okay.
And then we've also posted on Facebook as well.
Has that already been in the newspaper?
I would think so, but I'm not 100% sure.
I know it's been on Facebook already.
Mm-hmm.
In the past, I think the process has been people who want to, if they wanted to fill out those 2 meetings or whatever, is make a application to the council for, they're interested in filling that spot. Is that, if we did that, would that be the plan? Have them, how would we know who's interested in filling out for 2 meetings?
I reviewed the Iowa code on this, and again, I'm not an attorney, but from my review, the process to fill it is fairly up to the council. I mean, we can accept applications, we can make nominations, but we have to provide notice that we plan to appoint because there is an opportunity for the public to petition that appointment. Now, it doesn't really make sense in this situation, cause all their petition would do is require a special election, which we're already doing, so. But yeah, I think the process could be up to us, and I think it would make sense to accept applications and have the council review those.
Does the council have a approach that they favor?
Well, in thinking about it, if we go that route, I would say it probably would be to speed up the process, you know, we put a date on it and then have a committee of maybe 2 to 3 people to sort through so they can present at the next council meeting for approval. Otherwise, if we wait until the next meeting to discuss, we are pushing it into February for that person to sit in, so in order to kind of expedite it, I think it might be easier if we just had a 2 to 3 committee go through those individuals and then make a recommendation.
If it has to be posted, how much time does it need, does there need to be between the posting and the selection?
The public notice has to be published no less than 4 and no more than 20 days before the meeting where I'm not sure if that's a public hearing or just where the appointment is made. I'd have to double check, but
Well, you wouldn't get it in this week's paper, it'd be next week's, and that's gonna be passed.
yeah, I
Then
mean,
the
we
second
couldn't
meeting
do
in
it
January.
until that, I think we couldn't get it in until the second meeting in January for sure. But
I agree with Rich, let's get some sort of application out there for people to submit, sort them out, and then appoint from there.
even with the election on the 3rd.
Well, they would be for 2 meetings at least minimum, if we need them. I don't know if, because I know in February, I think John's gonna have, what, hip surgery, so he won't be here. We'll be down to a council of 4.
Somebody gets sick.
If somebody's absent, it might be that we need to have that person available.
Okay.
You're not planning any trips, are you?
Well,
Well, if we don't get anybody in that amount of time, what's the option then? Can we choose someone and just appoint them for that period of time? Is that possible? Otherwise, we're in the middle of February before anything happens.
Well, if we set the deadline for, I don't know, if you get it on Facebook, get it on the website, we should get it, probably most people that are gonna be interested within a week, I would think. I mean, the ones that are probably really interested are gonna file papers to fill out the
Yeah.
2-year slot,
I agree.
so.
Any would there be any specific information you would look to have? Just kind of a written.
Why they're interested,
Why
I
they're
guess, what
interested.
they're,
kind of a resume type thing.
Well, kinda similar to
shortened.
when you apply to be on the board, various boards.
you know, maybe something to say why they think they might benefit being on city council or the council in some fashion or something.
Okay.
There ought to be some on file, because I'm pretty sure I had to fill one out.
Okay.
With this agenda item, and being as it has been posted, the council could not appoint the next vote getter in the previous election tonight?
No,
There has to be a secondary,
there has to be
Public
a public
notification.
notification before that's occurred.
and this doesn't qualify.
No.
So do you need a motion to proceed?
Yeah, I think we should have a motion, basically the intent to fill vacancy by an appointment, at least until the special election. And then I could proceed with that, get the notice, published as soon as possible. That'd be, not this Thursday, but the following Thursday, and that should give us, I think, the four days we need before that January 27th meeting.
So do you need, does the motion need to include a cutoff date for the application?
It doesn't have to, but it could.
So if,
I don't know.
Probably help, because you need it quick as
It
possible.
would be
Yeah.
good to have it by probably,
So it'd be published the 23rd.
if we had it by the Wednesday before the meeting,
By
the
the
22nd.
22nd. Okay, so I'll make the motion to accept applications to fill the, empty council chair. Applications would be due by January 22nd at 4 PM.
Second.
Is there any public input on this matter? We have a motion on the floor by Rich to, second by Jeff, to appoint the vacated seat on this current city council, with interested applicants, to submit their interest by January 22nd at 4 PM. Is there any further discussion of the council?
What's the date of the publication? Isn't it after the 22nd?
The public, yeah,
It's Thursdays. I'm thinking next.
the Thursday
Thursday's
would be the
23rd.
date it actually gets published.
What date is that?
23rd.
23rd?
So you won't have the notice published
That's
when
true.
you're asking for applications to be due before it's published.
Because the cutoff for the
Well-
paper's the Friday before, I believe.
But is the notice for applications, or is the notice stating that we want to appoint?
We are soliciting for applications.
Yeah, I mean, it's, it's the notice to, that, to appoint, so, I don't think, because I don't think we're required to accept applications, I don't know that it's illegal to cut them off before the publication. It might seem a little bit weird, might make some people upset.
Let's just amend it a
But-
couple of days.
Do you want it to go to Friday then?
Like this Friday?
Friday at noon? Have,
We can extend it, yeah.
okay, I'll amend my motion to go to January 24th at, have applications due by noon.
Second.
Rich has amended his motion for a cut date of Friday, January 24th at 12 o'clock noon. Jeff has seconded the amended motion. Any further discussion? One once again, is there any public input on the amended motion? All those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimous. 7.2, approval of the committee appointments for 2020 as recommended by Mayor Rod Smith. You should have received a copy
We did.
of my recommendation. It was in the second council mailing.
And there's a copy here also.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Rich to approve the mayor's submitted council liaisons, second by Kay. Any further discussion on the council? Does the public have any input on this agenda item? All those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimous. 7.3, resolution approving and setting the dates for the regular Anamosa City Council meeting for calendar year 2020.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion by council? Any input from the public? Motion has been made by Rich, second by John, approving and setting the dates for the regular Anamosa City Council meetings for calendar year 2020. This is a roll vote.
Stout,
Yes.
Zumba,
Yes.
Lockhart,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Crump.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously. 7.4, presentation by Mike McKee, MI2 Operating Systems LLC, on the operations assessment conducted on the water and wastewater departments. Do not believe that Mike is present to give any presentation.
So, may I speak?
Yes.
Yeah, I was notified this morning, got an email, let's see, about 10:49 this morning, from Mike, basically stating that he wouldn't be here. And he basically informed me of a dispute over payment on this issue. He believes that we should have paid the second installment on our service agreement, which I have a copy for you.
Did they bill us for it?
They did. They actually billed us for that back. They billed us for the whole remainder, which was $3,750, back on November 18th. And on November 19th, I responded and let them know that I had not received the final written report as described in the agreement, and that we wouldn't pay until we did. There wasn't any argument at that time, and there hasn't been until this morning. In fact, we had a presentation scheduled back in December, and he canceled because he was sick. Never said anything about non-payment until this morning.
New to this, is this a ongoing service agreement that we've had in the
Just
past?
a
It's a one-time?
one-time thing that we approved for an assessment. Now I think we're clear up front, and still would like to enter into a more long-term consulting agreement. That's kind of their bread and butter, is to oversee stuff. But I was also upfront that wasn't something we were interested in. That we were just looking for something as a one-time deal. And
they say we own 3750 for the like the half you said, but it says it shouldn't exceed 5,000.
Right, so we paid 25% of the 5,000 up front, as the agreement states. And then they did their on-site visit, November, what's that?
Well, they were here
September
in
19th.
yeah.
But we weren't supposed to pay the next 50% until we've received the final report, which we have not done. I do have a draft report in email.
How can they accept or expect payment for that then when you haven't received what was stated here? I don't know what their thinking is.
I'm not sure. But,
So what you sent to us was a preliminary draft?
that's what I've received, yes.
That's the
And when
way I
did, when
read
did
it
you
as well.
receive that?
I received that back on the November 19th, and again, per, I don't know if you, no need to read through this, the whole thing, but they specified, this was the cover letter I received with the draft that specified they would make revisions and provide the final report, which I never received.
And when you talked to him, did you tell him that we have not received the final?
I have.
And what was his response?
Um, I can look at the email.
Because what I read in their preliminary, I was not impressed with.
Well, we could have asked everybody before we had them come.
Have
Yeah,
we-
I wasn't extremely impressed with the report either.
No.
I think, again, there's a lot of places where you could tell they left questions open with the intent of trying to sell us on an ongoing
Mhm.
agreement.
Has
I would
anybody
agree.
talked to the department heads and gotten an assessment of what they, how they feel about
Well,
the?
Well,
they would,
well, the thing of it is when, in reading that report, and they say, we need to talk to the department head, we need to ask the department head, we need, that doesn't work, and they've had 2 months to ask those questions and didn't get it done.
Right, I would agree.
Have you, sent a copy of this agreement to the city attorney?
I have not yet, no.
I think you probably should. Let him take a look at it.
What I remember from the email was he had asked, which seems weird. Again, he didn't want to come tonight to give the presentation, but he had asked to be on the agenda for our next meeting if payment wasn't received. So, I guess he's planning to come here and discuss that. But I'll make contact with him and I'll provide a copy to the attorney. The last 25% of the agreement was always, and it's very clearly in the agreement, a optional thing. So if we were to receive the final agreement, I mean, I think whether we like it or not, we probably owe the 2,500, but that remainder, I would not be in support of paying.
I don't think they earned any of it, but we're gonna owe them probably everything except that last 25%, but I don't think what's there was, like Rich did, we could've went and talked to Dan and Jim and asked the questions and got,
some
much as they did,
information.
didn't sound like they understood the systems or what what need to be done to do it more efficient.
I think it was probably more a waste of our operators' time, effort, and our money.
I would agree.
I would like to ask some questions to the council, if I can approach, on this matter.
What type of questions are you?
Would you come up to the podium?
Thank you. My name is Jim Henson. I'm the water superintendent for the city of Anamosa.
Jim, before you proceed, I would just like to remind you that this is a topic, agenda item, for the presentation of the MI2 employee or representative. I'm all about giving you some room here, but
Okay, if I say anything.
just tread
out of
tread
line,
lightly, that
please let me know. I just wanna go over the MI2 report. I do agree with, there's a lot of things that I saw in here were beneficial towards me as an operator. They did say a lot of good things, but there were a lot of things in this report that were wrong. Speaking for myself on here, I did get the report November 27th, and this was long past the time where I should have got a report. I think physically between me and another operator should have got our report a lot sooner. According to them, they were gonna have it 2 weeks sooner than that. And on that point, I called on a Thursday, then a Friday, and got in contact with both of them, said they were gonna send it each day, and said they were even gonna send it on a Saturday. It's important for me as an operator to know the things that I do that are wrong, along with right. We have areas in here where I could have put into the budget upwards of $30,000 for a SCBA unit, which has to do with the Cascade, backpacks, and the whole works, because they didn't expect this right here to be consistent with what the safety program was for having a chlorine room and using masks. So that was part of it. We also had areas in here where it said no emergency power, and that was for well 4, and we have emergency power. These are areas in here where they were completely wrong. Us having a certified lab, we do not have a certified lab through the state. We do daily rounds. That is also put in here. We don't go through the state. We do daily rounds, but that isn't a state requirement for us to do our daily rounds through the state. As a, let's see, find out how they put it in here. State certified lab. We don't go through a state certified lab. Now, other departments do. I just wanna let you all know that what we went through with this to be done was really not the right thing to do, because both us as operators for the utilities were scrutinized by the state as far as DNR. We do, we get a sanitary inspection every year. We go through IMU for safety. That's constant throughout the year. And for this to come up, I just felt like the utilities were kind of scrutinized on that, and somebody else should have been also looking at it as all departments in general to be looked at through their budget, through their safety, and through everything else that had to go along with this. So that's all I have to say. If you have any questions.
I've got one question for you, Jim.
Yes, sir.
Did they ever do any follow-up phone calls with you to ask about anything?
No. No, as a matter of fact, I'm glad you brought that up. They started on our safety with our masks that have to do with the chlorine room. And I was really surprised to hear the comments that they made when we were there, because he said, those, what you are using are not legal. And I wondered, how do you know that? So tell me, what do I need to use? He says, you should have SCBA's. I don't know any operator out there that I've been affiliated with that uses SCBA's, which is very expensive. What we have to do in ours, we go through short-term exposure limits. Our exposure limit to our masks that we have, which are full face, they are up to 10 ppms on short-term. Anything over that brings us into IDLH. And that's immediate danger to life and health. What happens is we don't use that because my employees will not go into a room anywhere past 10 ppms because that's death. That chlorine room is the most important part in this town because that is handled by certain people that know what they're doing. So if I have a problem there with a large amount of chlorine leak, it goes to emergency management. Emergency management calls Cedar Rapids, and they have to come out and do that. Knock on wood, that will never happen, but it could. They didn't even know that. And that's the problem I have with although I did get a good report, I got a great report, I didn't like the way things were performed by a guy that says they know everything. And that's what he stated right at this podium. And I don't think, my opinion, you guys do what you have to do, but I wouldn't pay him a dime.
Jim, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
You were talking about all the different departments that the state and DOT, or the DNR and people that get involved in this. Is this more like an overlap? All they're doing is kind of overlapping what everybody's doing already?
Yeah.
There's nothing in there that they're
In
doing.
fact, there was a lot less than what I expected. So when they came out, when I spent 4 hours with the gentleman that was there, which was very kind, decent man, I expected, I can't even, if I took you to the water plant, I could spend a full 2 days with you and still not go over everything. And I can promise you that. There'll be things I will miss. And that's the problem I have with the 4 hours that we took, and then we get this type of report. I do say it makes me look very good, but I don't agree with it. Not that part, but I don't agree with I don't agree with the whole realm of the way they did things. And I can tell you right now, I also learned that our insurance company does the same thing. Maybe not in budget, but they do go across to different places that they insure, and they'll go over safety, they'll go over chemicals, they don't go over budget or anything like that, and they'll take a broad look at what's going on at the plant for free. So, anyway, that's all I have. If you guys have any questions, I do appreciate you guys hearing me out, and congratulations to the new people that are aboard. So I look forward to working with you in the future.
Thanks, Jim.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jim.
Thanks.
Thank you.
So do you want a motion?
I would prefer to see a motion to table this agenda item until the next meeting, and hopefully an MI2 representative, especially Mike McKee himself, will be present to bring us up to speed on his overall report or assessment.
Well, and I would like to have something from the city attorney after he looks at this agreement to maybe give us some direction on whether or not we have to pay it or what his opinion is of it.
Okay.
So I'll make the motion to table it.
I'll second it.
Motion by Rich, second by Kay, to table 7.4, presentation of the MI2 operating system assessment. Any further discussion? Public input? All those favor and signify with aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Appointment of representatives to committee to oversee, 7.5, appointment of representatives to committee to oversee the design and implementation of the Old Dubuque Road extension to Parham Drive and closure of the intersection of Old Dubuque Road, 130th Street, and US Highway 151.
I'll make a motion for appointment of Mayor Rod Smith, Police Chief Jeremiah Hoyt. And as a carryover from previous discussions on this, Cody Schaefer.
I second the motion.
I think it'd be pretty important for myself to be on that committee.
Well, I think you can attend. I don't know if you need to have an acting vote on that. But you could, I mean, we could have anybody attend the meetings, I believe.
I think so.
But it's whether or not, as far as voting members,
Sure.
that's my motion.
Motion by Rich, second by Kay, that the following individuals serve on the committee to oversee the Old Dubuque Road extension to Parham Drive and closure of the intersection of Old Dubuque Road, 130th Street, US Highway 151. Individuals are Mayor Rod Smith, Police Chief Jeremiah Hoyt, ex-city council member Cody Schaefer. Any public input?
Mike Dearborn, 405 North Division. I think it's great that you're actually following up on a town hall meeting, which doesn't happen all that often. Actually hasn't happened in years. But I did attend it, and I did notice that they kind of were shooting for even a wider variety of members on that committee. And I'll just beat the same dead horse I've always said. We need citizen input. So they did bring up that they'd like some citizens, whether it be business owners, property owners, or just whoever, school officials. But I think you need a wider variety of members on that committee. I don't know what the county's intent is. I'm assuming they'll bring it up at their next meeting, which is tomorrow. So something to think about.
On that note, I was contacted by county engineer today. They, at least as of that conversation, they weren't planning to take action tomorrow. So the resolution we both passed Thursday night specified the format of the committee, which they had reviewed, but they didn't take issue with until this morning. So they were going to propose updating the resolution, primarily because they plan to have more than one elected official represent them. And the way the resolution is written, it's just one elected official. So I don't think they didn't discuss anything with me about adding more people to each side. They said the 3 and 3 was fine. The only thing other than that they mentioned was maybe adding members from the DOT, which I'd always intended to work with the committee, but not necessarily be, like you said, a voting member on the committee. But they thought that might be important, so they were going to get some suggestions and send them back our way. I don't think it'll ever change the amount that we're recommending, so I think we can do that tonight and then modify the resolution as needed. But that's up to you.
Well, I'm certainly in agreement with Mike. At some point, I would very much like to extend the committee to, city business leaders. They are very much impacted by this decision. But I would certainly favor the individuals that you have made the motion for, Rich, with Kay second, but to give consideration as we advance this, that we broaden that to include, because this is one of those things that we may have one shot with the DOT, and let's make sure we get it right. And we don't reflect back on this 20 years now and say, you know what, we should have asked for more.
Well, I agree with that, Rod, because I think the school ought to be involved. They're greatly impacted by this. I think they ought to be involved. I think we need, like you said, some business people, maybe some people who live in that area involved too. I do realize if you get a committee too large, a lot of times nothing gets
You
done.
struggle to get
Yeah.
things done.
But I think at this point in time, starting with this committee of 6, we need to get that ball rolling. We can add later as we see fit. But I think just to get the initial process started, we need to set and get it started, and then do like Mike says, get some
Add-
business people, get economic development involved, get a lot of different people involved in this, the fire chief also, emergency management and so forth, but I think we need to start somewhere.
Sure.
And with that committee, we have the 3, but like you said, extend out the invite to a lot of different, like the business people, you know, the schools, economic development, ADCO, you know, those kind of groups. I don't know how you get the word out to all them, but would they be able to come to these committee meetings?
I'm sure they would. I mean,
Well,
they
then-
certainly have
It
a
would be
vested
open to the
interest in the
public.
outcome of this.
I got a question. We could, if we take these people and develop them as an advisory board, you get too many people voting or disagreeing, and it's gonna be kind of a fiasco getting this process going, but it'd be real important for the city, people in the city, like he was talking, to be on what we would consider maybe an advisory board, that at times we would meet with them and try to work out some of the glitches and kind of keep things streamlined. Just a thought.
But I think we need to set
Sure.
this right now, and then we can work with the county on how to proceed from there.
Did you have something else you wanted to?
Just kind of going off that, I mean, I think once the committee's formed with the voting members, I think, again, the way it's written, they kind of have the authority to develop some further rules if they want to approve some advisory members, you know, that can sit and attend the meeting. I mean, I think it would be open to the public, anyone could probably attend, but I think it'd be important to invite maybe specific people. I think the school superintendent or a representative from the school would be a good example to be involved in those meetings, even if they don't have a vote on that committee.
Dick Dearborn, 600 North William Street. My question is, I wasn't able to make that public hearing, but what I read and what I've heard from others is, as Jeff said, it was a hearing. There wasn't a lot of information doled out, just hearing, okay, and that's fine. But it seemed to me like the overall majority of that hearing was not to close it. Is it my understanding that we're gonna go ahead and close it? Is this where we're at this point, is how do we implement closing it? Or is it still on the question, still on the block, are we gonna close it?
So I think for anyone to view, the video of the hearing is now online and shared on the city's Facebook page, so you can take your own impression of what occurred. I think we had mixed reviews. There were some people that were against it and some that were definitely for it. To me, the thing that hit home the most was people kept coming back and saying, we want more details, we want a plan. And I couldn't agree more, and that's the whole point behind this, was we didn't want to rush into a hearing with, well, we think this and we think that, and get buried in the weeds of exactly how to be implemented. And so the committee will take the time to work through and develop a strong plan to either modify or close that intersection, while also planning a road connecting Old Dubuque to Parham. And once those details are developed, we can provide that to the public, and kind of stand behind it more than we could Thursday night. So that
So
was,
we could anticipate another public hearing or public information at least to tell them where we at. And then, again, are we locked into closing it, or are we too late at that point to say, you know, no, this isn't what, you know, the majority wants, whatever. I don't know if you wanna call it majority. You are elected, you are here to represent, I understand that, but, you know, I just feel like we're going down that road whether we want to or not, and there may not be any turning back once we get this committee going, and that's my question. I mean, I have reservations about it, but I don't know enough about it, that's the point. I don't know that many of the people at that meeting probably didn't know how many options you had. The previous, public meetings we had, about the police station and the options, you gave us 10 different options, stepped through it very nicely, and explained pros and cons of each one. You know, none of that was forthcoming there, so a lot of those opinions that were given were maybe not, educated, you know, because they don't know. You know, I just learned a possibility that you're not gonna, close the median, but just close that one access onto it from the Anamosa side where all the accidents happen. I didn't know that, but that sounds like a plausible deal, but you know, those are the kinds of things that I don't know, nobody else knows. I mean, otherwise, I thought you were gonna have to have a frontage road up to Parham's and then another frontage road down the other side. You know, that's expensive, I don't know how plausible that is, but you know, you wouldn't need that if you just didn't close that median. You know, you come back down the highway, you cross over to get to the condos or whatever. If that's even an option, I don't know, but I heard it was, that was news to me. So anyway, it just seems to me like we're getting ahead of ourselves without the public's really knowing what's the options are, and should they be, better educated, I guess. But anyway.
Dick, just to recap, in a previous council meeting, Sheriff Grover had presented this, and I think it would be safe to assume he wanted full closure in the short period. We were able to pump the brakes and review, set the joint meeting. So a lot of your questions, they do need answers. At this time, the committee has not, you know, really been formed or even met. I would think as we move forward that your questions will have some structured answers to them. And with myself serving, and as well as Chief Hoyt and Cody, I believe from a city standpoint, we will be as informative to the public as we possibly can. The only restrictions to me, would be anything legal-wise that we could not release. So I would like to think your questions have answers, they're just coming.
No problem, thanks.
So the motion is on the floor by Rich, second by Kay, for those three individuals to serve as the city's representation on this joint committee. Any further discussion on the council? All those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Motion carries unanimously. 7.6, approval of the settlement agreement with Kalachi Construction regarding dispute over wastewater treatment plant and expansion project.
Again, I put this on here with the hope that we'd have something to discuss, but we don't. We're waiting, our attorney provided, the written agreement, to Kalachi's attorney. I think it was after Christmas, but before the new year. And we just recently, I think, got back their response, which there were still some things that we just can't agree to. So, working out those last few items, and hopefully we'll have it for our next meeting. But the impetus is really with them. I mean, we don't lose anything. I mean, other than having to drag it out by delaying it. They're the ones that need to be paid. So
they need to be paid, but
So do the subs.
the subs are the ones that are
Yes.
hurting out of this thing.
I agree. I think we've done everything in our power to settle this and get it resolved. I know our attorney's working on it, and again, we've provided them plenty of time.
So do we need to table this to a later time, or,
Probably should table it till the next meeting.
okay,
So
I will
I would
move,
like to see a motion to table this
okay,
till the next meeting.
so moved.
Second.
Motion by Kay, second by John to table, the settlement agreement with Palachi until we can get advisement from legal. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Jake, did you apply some pressure with our, legal team to have that available by the next meeting?
I will. I don't think it's their fault, but I will.
At what point do we crank up the heat if they're gonna keep dragging it out?
We just, I mean, we kind of discussed the only option we have. I mean, if we really want to put the heat on them, is, I mean, we could make a motion to, I mean, to bring it to court. I mean, with kind of the intention of not doing that, but just to get them to be reasonable and get the settlement done. I don't know when that becomes an option to actually do, but
Well, I think we need to discuss that at some future date and have a plan in place.
yeah, I'll discuss if we don't, I guess if we don't have a written settlement to consider, we might have a closed session with our legal counsel so that we can discuss our next options.
7.7, review and approval of current bills.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Rich, second by John to approve the bills as submitted.
I do have a question. Why did we write a manual check to Phil Staub since we're approving bills twice a month?
So, I know it's been past practice, not necessarily right, but when he's doing projects, we'll front money for the equipment that he's purchasing, so like, I don't know what this one is for. But then also his time, we pay obviously after the fact, and we've done those as hand checks as well.
Which item are you on, Rich?
What's that?
Which item are you on?
It's front page, December manual checks, Phil Staub, $2,200.
Okay, gotcha.
Beth, you know if that was for time?
It was for time and then a new PC for the LCC.
Well, and I get that, it's just, I don't understand why we're writing a manual check for this when the manual checks had some stipulations to them of, they were to avoid late fees, for payroll, you know, there were some stipulations attached to them. Just kinda questioning why we're continually doing that, and now that I know we're fronting money to somebody, I'm wondering if it's time we don't look for a new IT company person.
We've already discussed that, so we've got some names, and I'm working on an RFP to put out, and
Okay,
I think it's just time that we get, at least look at our options and probably look at something else, so.
So Phil Staub is a network service provider? I mean, they do the website and
No,
servers and-
all he does is provide kind of as needed IT services. So we just kind of call him whenever we've got an issue, and he's a I mean he's kind of a one man operation, runs his own company. I mean, he services several clients. Most of them are in Cedar Rapids, but
Well,
Do you-
I
is he
think
local?
we've kind of outgrown, our need has outgrown what kind of his service level is.
Well, and I'd like to see citywide, all departments kind of fall under one company so that we're consistent.
I think that would be good.
You know, in some businesses, having that one individual can be a problem because if something happens to him, where do you turn?
Mhm. Yeah, there's,
I think it's time we take a look at that.
there's a lot of options out there that they
Oh.
handle everything from firewall to servers to website.
Yeah. So, that was my only question.
So your motion, Rich, you're looking to continue to pay the bills as submitted.
Yep, if he's provided the service, that's fine, but I just was questioning why we're doing a handwritten check.
Any further discussion? All those in favor of paying the bills as submitted signify with aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous carry. 8.0, city administrators report.
Last Thursday, January 9th, we had our initial meeting for collective bargaining with the police union. I think we made some good progress, but there's still issues we've got to resolve, so we planned a follow-up. Can't remember the date off the top of my head, but it was in February. Just everybody's schedule didn't seem to line up. So we'll go back and work with the city attorney and work through some of the issues, and hopefully we'll get something resolved at that next meeting. I am already optimistic things are going smoother this year than they did last year, so I'm confident we can work something out that works for everybody. The budget timeline got moved just a little bit, not as far ahead as I'd like to be right now, but everything's still comfortable. We were gonna review a couple departments tonight, but I bumped those back to the special meetings. So I'll get an updated timeline to you, but right now the plan is to move the police to the January 30th special meeting and the street to the February 3rd special meeting, and then we'll just have 3 departments each night. Somewhat related, I had been planning an orientation, and we were planning on the 25th, but what I understood is that there were multiple people who could not attend that date. I'd really like to get everybody in attendance. So, if possible tonight, I'd like to try to find that date that works for everybody. Is it right that some of you couldn't attend the 25th?
I can't,
I
I got,
can't,
Yeah.
I'm out of pocket that weekend.
So, I think it's really gonna end up being a full day thing, so, I could make a weekday work, but I don't think the majority of you guys could, so,
I can't, not in January.
that's why I was looking at weekends, is, any of those other Saturdays maybe work. February 1st.
I can do February 1st.
I gotta check. I got 4 more appointments this week with doctors, so I need to see what they got lined up. Wouldn't think they do
And-
things on Saturdays, but some do, some
And John-
classes.
Most of February, you're busy.
Yeah, I don't know, this is supposed to be a lot quicker recovery than a knee,
Sure.
but I don't know, can't guarantee, but
Sure.
should be, I would think, February, a little later, if that would work.
Well, let me ask a question at this stage. Do we wanna go ahead and do this knowing full well there's gonna be a new council person starting early March? And should we look into March then, so that they can be available and
Yeah.
attend?
We could do that.
I think we, at this stage, we're this close.
That would
What?
help with my schedule, cause I can't guarantee.
Well, and it helps with John and.
So you push it back till after the election, or?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Until
I-
after the
Yeah.
person is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So mid to latter March, if we could.
Okay.
Good idea, Rich.
Do you want me to propose some dates or wait till that person is elected to set the date?
Now you might as well wait until they're elected so that they can look at their calendar
Too.
Okay.
Yeah.
and see how John's getting
Yeah.
along.
Okay.
okay.
I think, that is all I have to report unless there are questions.
I do have one question. Anything going on with the Main Street encroachment?
Still working through the process. We had sent notice, via certified mail that was not picked up. We probably should have done this out of the gun, but, that was sent to a residential address. I think we're gonna try sending notice, to the commercial address. Regardless, we've got options. If something's not done, we can proceed to court if necessary. We've been following up with the city attorney on it, so.
Can we get a timeline of when the letters were sent and when the dude?
The first letter was sent, December 10th. Yeah.
And there was supposed to be action taken by when?
They had, I think, 10 days to appeal to the council, which obviously didn't occur. And then I think they had an additional 20, so basically 30 days from that, to provide some sort of plan, essentially a timeline to abate the nuisance. I haven't received anything, and they haven't picked up their notice, so, from what I understand, I think we've met our obligation to deliver the notice. I think our advice at this time is to send a second courtesy notice. We don't have to provide the same timelines now, but to try to still resolve things without getting legal involved, if at all possible.
Well, next meeting, keep us updated.
Sure.
Can you forward the revised budget schedule?
Yes.
Well, I mean, landfill and 911 emergency management mainly was budget talks. We're gonna have a special meeting week from Thursday, 23rd, whenever that is, to get all that finalized. So that's about all was talked about at them.
Any other questions for Jacob through the administrator's report? 9.0 mayor and council reports. Thank you for
Sorry, I
yours, John.
jumped the gun.
Sounds a little ahead.
9.1, council reports on boards and commissions. Ten point zero, public with business with the council on items not on the agenda. Before we take inquiries from the public. I would really encourage, future, this will be on the agenda, but I encourage the public to submit their inquiry prior, so we can get it placed on the agenda. That way, action items can occur. The way this stands, due to, public notification of council meeting to discuss, no action item can occur. So I would very much encourage the public to submit these agenda items prior, or these items prior. Please approach the podium, state your name, your address, and the subject matter. Also keep in mind that the council cannot take any action on items discussed under 10.0. I would also ask that you give the elected officials and others that are sitting up here the professional respect that the chairs deserve. And I would appreciate council to show the individuals the respect that they deserve. Let's refrain from any personal attacks and any obscene gestures. With that, I will go into 10.0.
Tom Durgan, property owner downtown. I just wanted to welcome you guys, welcome you, Rod, to the new position there. I'd like to also add that I think out of all the meetings I've been to, this is the first time that I could hear almost everything that was said without a speaker or anything. Just a quick question, if you can answer this, Jacob, is, have you heard from Jim from the city, or from the state? Or has he contacted you about the report on?
I was expecting it in the last week. I actually received it late this afternoon. I haven't even looked at it one bit. It'll be distributed. It'll be posted on the city website for people to discuss it. The council will certainly be discussing it in the future. So,
When will it be available for us to get a copy of it? I'm not much of an online computer person.
you could probably
hard
stop
enough
in
time with
tomorrow and you could probably stop in tomorrow and get a copy
Awesome.
if you needed to.
Have you had a chance to read it at all, or?
I have not.
Okay. Because like I said before, there were some awesome ideas, and I really hope everybody's on board with some of that, because I think it'd really be a good deal. So, thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Tom.
Mike Dearborn, 405 North Division. This may be a good example of what can't be submitted in advance, Rod, but I'm sure during all these storms, city gets all kinds of complaints. I'm sure you got all kinds of calls this Monday after the weekend, but just real simply, can we start enforcing the downtown property owners and tenants to start shoveling their walks?
Yes.
I mean, a good example is just the south side of Main Street. I can give you 3, 4, maybe even 5 that didn't do either one of the storms, and they didn't do any of the storms early in the season either. To me, it's a very simple enforcement deal. You see it hasn't been done, contact them. You know, the overwhelming majority of the people downtown do conform to that, but the ones that don't, I mean, it's terrible, especially on this side, because that sun never hits. That ice could be there this time next year, for crying out loud. So I'd really like to see some enforcement. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. With that, Mike, I would very much like to say that we would address this matter that you brought for us, but it's still my understanding that it's not on the agenda, so we cannot take any action. But very much appreciate you pointing it out for any future weather-related incidents we might have between now and spring, that this can be taken care
Well, and we could put it on next agenda item as a discussion and possible action.
We sure could, Rich.
I'd like to commend you on bringing that up too, because my wife and I went out to eat right after this storm started hitting, and the sidewalks were freezing up, and I didn't work at the place that we stopped at, but I went up and said, do you have a bucket of salt? And they said, yes. And I said, if you'll get it for me, I'll put it on the sidewalk. My wife almost fell down. So I went out there and put salt, so I think it's a darn good idea.
Nancy Schaefer, 803 North Division Court. I want to say how much I appreciate the city employees that show up at these meetings, so that there are departments represented here, and if you have questions, you can ask them. And I do appreciate you guys coming. So.
Thanks, Nancy. Any other individuals that have matters with the council not on the agenda? 11.0, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Rich, second by Alan to adjourn. All those in favor, signify aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time.
Okay.
For you.